Welcome to Faith in Action, a place where we encourage each other to live out our faith and trust in God through our words, our choices, and our actions. Today, I want us to look at how we can be able to handle life's storms. When I talk about life storms, I'm talking about life's difficulties, challenges, or hardships. As Christians, we sometimes meet different hardships, which include but not limited to unemployment, financial challenges, abusive relationships, divorce, ill health, or sickness, to mention just but a few. Some of these challenges that we face in our lives derail or threaten our relationship with God. That is why it is important for us to learn how we can handle these challenges. But of importance is also the realization that God allows us to sometimes go through these difficulties and challenges in our lives for a purpose. Sometimes He might want to teach us important life lessons, or He wants to grow us into better individuals, such that He wants us to be wiser. He wants us to be more mature, stronger, or even more responsible. But the first step towards handling life's challenges is actually to accept that you have got a problem or you've got a challenge. Acceptance is key in order to be able to find a solution to your challenge or your problem. You don't have to bury your head in the sand. Remember, you're not the only one who has got challenges. A lot of people have challenges. So you need to accept that there is a problem. And once you accept that there's a problem, you have taken the first step to finding a solution to that problem. Instead of hiding the problem, instead of pretending that there's no problem, acknowledge the problem. And that's a very good starting point. After realizing that you've got a problem, then you need to present your problem to God. You need then to communicate with God. Talk to God about your problem. Tell God about your problem. In fact, Jesus says in Matthew 11:28, "Come to me, all you who labor and are overburdened, and I will give you rest." Meaning to say that God already knows that you've got a problem, but you need to present it before Him so that He can find a solution for you. Remember, there's nothing impossible with God. When you present your problem before God, God will remove the burden from you. In other words, we are saying that God will solve the problem for you. There's no need for you to go alone on the problem. Don't think that you're going to be able to solve it on your own. Some of the problems are too big and beyond you, beyond your control, that you can't be able to solve them on your own. That is why we are urging you to present the problems before God. And God, who is all powerful, our God, who is all merciful, will be able to remove the burden from you and give you comfort, and give you rest, and give you peace. So you ought to surrender the challenge or the problem that you have before Christ, so that the problem can be solved by the one who has solutions to all problems. But it does not end there. Depending on the nature of your problem or challenge, you ought then to go and talk to professionals. For instance, if you are not feeling well, if you are sick, you cannot just pray and stay in your house, you ought to be practical and go and see a medical doctor who is going to be able to prescribe some medicine for you so that once you take the medicine, you can begin to feel better and be healthy again. God works through the doctor in this case so that your health is restored. So whenever you encounter a challenge or a problem, you ought to be practical about it. You can even go and talk to a friend or a colleague who can be able to offer you support emotionally, morally, or otherwise. Let us say, for instance, you have lost your job. You can't just cry while you're seated in the house. You ought to talk to people, talk to friends, prepare your curriculum vitae. That's something practical. Only when you go out to talk to friends, maybe they might be able to hear something for you and recommend something for you so that you find employment, which is a step in the right direction. Of interest is what I read concerning the time when the disciples were moving with Jesus in a boat, crossing from one place to another. And then there was a storm which was about to capsize the boat. The disciples woke Jesus up. They did not just sit in the boat and say, "No, Jesus is here, nothing is going to happen." No, they woke him up and say, "Hey, teacher, don't you care if we perish?" That is action. That is what you ought to do when you encounter problems. Be practical about them. Talk to God. Yes, that's a very good starting point, but be practical about them. Remember, God helps he who helps himself. You cannot just have a problem, sit over it, and think that God is going to solve it for you. You need to be practical, be pragmatic about the problem. Take action to solve the problem. Then God will help you to solve the problem completely. It's important, therefore, that you ought to be optimistic when you've got a problem. Don't be afraid. Like Jesus asked his disciples here, "Why are you afraid? Have you no faith?" Yes, the problem is there. You've acknowledged the problem. You have sought the face of God. You have spoken to some other people. You have consulted some other people, depending on the nature of your problem. But then you need to have the faith that God is going to be able to solve the problem for me. Exercise your faith. Believe by surrendering your challenge before God. Tell him that God is the only person who is able to solve the problem for you. Present your challenge before Christ. Let him handle it for you, because he's an all-merciful God and he's an all-powerful God. Thank you so much for listening to this video. Enjoy your day. Meet you in the next one. Bye for now.